Welcome to the Closer Experience, our midweek experience at the Leadership Church. Closer is a place where believers can grow closer to God. At TLC, we believe that making a spiritual development enhances our relationship with God, and that is more than a Sunday experience. And our Closer community provides just that. And now, the Closer Experience.
Good evening and welcome to the Closer Experience brought to you by the Leadership Church. My name is Joyce Littell. I am a member of the Leadership Church, and every Wednesday we have the Closer Experience, and we hope that at the end of each show, in this show, that you would have experienced a moment in which you will grow closer to God. Now, our Leadership Church is led by Pastor Tony Cash and by our executive pastor, Pastor Alicia Cash. As I mentioned, the Closer Experience airs every Wednesday night starting at 7 o'clock, and you can find us on our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook page. So make sure you tune in, engage with us, and we hope that you enjoy the conversation that we will have tonight. As you know, it's February. And one big thing that happens in February is Black History Month. And the Leadership Church prides ourselves on keeping you up to date and abreast on any and everything that goes on in our lives as it pertains to your life on a regular basis as it pertains to your life as you take your faith and spiritual walk. And so, since it's Black History Month, we want to delve all month long on Black history. And I couldn't think of no other person that I wanted to kick this Black History Month series off on the Closer Experience with none other than Brother Derek Bozeman. Derek Bozeman is a former politician. He is an activist, and he is the host of a very popular show called Too Much Truth. Can be heard on News and Talk, WAOK, weekdays from 4 until 7 p.m. So I had to snatch him up and say, Derek, come on and let's talk about Black history. And what we want to do is to talk about Black history and explore faith challenges, both past and present, and the ways in which these challenges are overcome. So first, hey, Derek, welcome to the Closer Experience.
Joyce, it's good to be here, and it's good to be with the Leadership Church and Pastor Cash and the First Lady and all you all do at the Leadership Church. I'm honored to be here. You didn't have to snatch me. I was running to get here to be with you. I appreciate so much for what the church means in the life of this city and this nation. So I'm grateful to be here to share with you.
Well, Derek, as I mentioned, February is Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it on T-shirts, you see it on posts. I've even seen one that says, I'm Black History 365, but in February, I'm blackety black. So, and that's what we want to delve into. What does Black history mean to you?
Well, I mean, when you look at our history, and I let everybody know because we often talk about our history here in what is called the Hells of North America, and these yet to be United States, as Maya Angelou referred to them. But I let folks know slavery was an interruption in our history. When you talk about the history of Black people, you got to talk about the people who built the pyramids. You got to talk about the people who understood astrology and astronomy, who gave the world science and math and balance and order and all of what we call the Mayatic principles. When you talk about us, you have to talk about our Black genius, not just in music and entertainment, but in every field of endeavor. Wherever you let us play, we have played. When you stuck golf clubs in our hand, we became Tiger Woods. When you put a tennis racket in our hand, we became Venus and Serena Williams, Althea Gibson. When you led us on the track, we became Edward Moses and all of what Black excellence looked like. And so for me, it's a lifestyle. It means to support our own, shop with our own, do business with us, and be proud of who we are. Storm in the road we trod is what the song said, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, but yet with a steady beat. regardless of what we have gone through, we have steadily come to the place where our fathers sighed and our grandmothers prayed that there would be one who reminded them of themselves, who could be on the radio for 38 years, right? That was a time when the Joyce Littell was not possible. But because people sacrificed and because people marched and picketed and had water hose turned on them, dogs sicked on them, we now stand in places where your and my grandmother could never stand. And for that, that should give us power to, as the old folks in church say, run on and see what the end gonna be.
Yeah. So, you've already dropped all these good nuggets, but I got some juicy questions that I want to share with you as well as our listening audience. And my first one is, how have faith and spirituality helped African Americans or black people preserve through periods of intense oppression and marginalization throughout history? How have faith and spirituality, in so many words, got us through?
God has always been on our side because we've always been on God's side. That's who we are as a people. And so I tell people, and I say this to even black ministers, it was the white church that created the black church experience in America. When Richard Allen, AME, was praying and praising God on the same floor as the rest of the Methodists were, he was told that you are a Negro and you cannot worship in the sanctuary with us. You can either go to the balcony or you can step outside. Richard Allen had, and this is the 1700, had the audacity to say, wait a minute now. You're telling me the God that you and I are praying to is not one God, that he's going to answer your prayer differently. He said, if that's the case, I don't want that God. Let me walk out of this church now with all of my dignity and let me found what is the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a division of the United Methodist Church. And so it has been our faith that has informed us. It has been our faith that has sustained us. It was our belief that God didn't bring us this far just to bring us this far. And so it has been the church that has been the central place that we met because it's the freest institution that we still own. When Pastor Cash steps into the pulpit on Sunday, there's nobody who tells him what he can preach and what he cannot preach. He has to do what thus says the Lord,
Right.
right? And sometimes that makes us feel good, sometimes that chastens us, but that's what the man and woman of God is challenged to do, to speak truth to power and in turbulent, terrible times. They did not bomb the club. They bombed the church where the four little girls were worshiping. They didn't bomb, just homes. They bombed the church too because they knew that was our sacred place. It was our place that we could go and authentically be who we are. And so it has been the place, the church has been the place that
Yes.
still calls us together,
Yes.
right? Not just for worship, but to help plan and strategize how we're going to get out of the situation we're in. And if there was ever a time that we needed the church to stand tall, it is now. So yes, the church has been, as Grandma would say, our everything. To be
Yes.
honest with you.
Yes. So then, what are some of the key religious practices or beliefs that provided a sense of hope and resilience during the era of slavery?
Well, every major religion, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, has about three or four tenets. All of them require you to pray. They require prayer. And the Bible reminds us that they were trying to cast out certain demons, but Jesus had to remind that this kind only comes through fasting and prayer.
Mhm.
Fasting, denying yourself of certain things, food being one of them. But what you're really trying to do is just get into a place where you can hear what God is trying to say to our people.
Mhm.
Charity, you know, Jesus reminded us, suffer the little children that come unto us. Don't think that you're so important unless you can develop the mind of a child and be childlike. and that means be obedient, right? Be subservient, be willing to serve others. If you want to be great, then you should be a servant. And then he reminds us in the gospel that his first sermon was, if you love him, then feed his people, right? And go out and do well and right by people. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he called me to preach the good news to the captives, to set free those who are in need of liberty. And all that means is Joyce, to feed the hungry,
Yes.
right? To clothe the naked, to counsel with those who are troubled, right? And the disciples asked, well, look, Jesus, when did we see you? If you love me, then go out and do these things. I mean, it's very clear that we are commanded to go and help the least of all to left out. And that's what we have to do. That's what brings me the greatest satisfaction. When
Right.
I know that I have helped somebody along the way, then I know my living ain't been in vain.
And I know, I mean, just the years that I've known you and some of the things that I've seen you fight for, it's just a form of encouragement based on, what I've seen growing up with great grandparents and great parents and even my living mother now. They had to have faith to get through all of that. And one of the things that and I say it all the time, but one of the things that I learned as a child is that you had to read your Bible and
Yeah.
you had to pray.
Oh,
It was vitally important, and that's why it was taught through Vacation Bible School or through Bible school, and you learned according to where you were in your age. But as you grow old and you learn, and what the leadership church, that's why I love this church so much, because they've taught me so much as an adult from what I used to hear as a child.
sure.
And it's so vitally important. So then, in what ways did the church serve as a community hub, Jerry, for African Americans during the civil rights movement?
Well, look, the one thing that you can go back and look at is the leadership, right? It was the Reverend Martin Luther King. It's the Reverend Ralph Abernathy. Many people did not know that even John Lewis was a reverend, right? You go down the list, Reverend Joseph Lowry, right? And the list goes on and on. You cannot do the soul searching work without having a spiritual base. I'll be honest, Joyce, I do not know where I would be if it was not for my personal relationship with Christ. I make no apologies, and people who know me know I put that out there first. I'm very unapologetic about that. When you do this hard work, I mean, we've been through a tough week in the last couple. We saw a man whose bodies were crushed by a city of Atlanta bulldozer while clearing out his home now, not some tent. The only thing this man owned. And the only reason he's dead is because he was poor and had a mental illness. And it bothers me that we can live in a city as rich as this one, that hosts Super Bowls and Olympics and everything we've done, but we cannot find a way to find housing for those who need it. As the scripture reminds us that the fox have a hole, the bird have a nest, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. We're a better nation than that. And so, if those things don't bother you, if they don't keep you up at night, uh, I have to look at you kind of side eye. I know that for me, my prayer every night, including a night like tonight, where I'll be honest, I'm dog tired because I've been visiting 3 schools and 2 or 3 other places, just trying to help young people become all that they can be. But at the end of the night, my prayer is, Lord, I pray that today I have done more good than harm. And tomorrow, if I didn't do what all you require, I get another chance to get it right. So yeah.
Well, how do contemporary Black faith leaders address the intersection of race, faith, and social justice today? How, what got to go down?
Well, I am very unapologetically Black, and I tell people that, and I simply know that our people have been so uniquely disenfranchised in this country. And in the history of the world, I travel the world over, as you mentioned. There's no other people that you can find on the planet who have had their name, their religion, their culture, their God, their fourways, their mores so interrupted, right? You can be blacker than the ace of spade and your name is John White. But when I travel in and out of Africa, I never find a John White, right? So we've had our name, our culture, our religion stripped from us, but we are still here. We are the answered prayers of the ancestors. So I will work with anybody who want to work for the liberation of our people. Race really, uh, uh, while it is a determining factor, we have had in our history abolitionists always, right? There have always been those who understand to be on the side of right has nothing to do with your race. We can look at Swarner and Goodman. They died, Swarner, Goodman, and Cheney, two Jews and a Black man who died because they dared to believe that America could be a better place, primarily for African Americans at the time. And so you cannot hide from social justice, right? Somebody had to sit down on that bus, and it happened to be a woman, right? Somebody has to stand up for the best of who we are. And that's a requirement for all of us who have a voice and can speak out.
What do you think then? Because a lot happened during the civil rights because it was such a strong unity, and then here we're dealing with a person and people wanting to roll all of that back.
Yeah.
Is it because they don't respect the same type of leadership now as was then? Why is it why is things are now being rolled back and the things that we're dealing with now?
Well, you're talking about this current leadership we have, and what you're looking at is white fear and white fragility. The numbers suggest that inside of America, if the birth rate among Black and brown people stayed the way it is, in about 15 years, the predominant race inside this country, who have been Anglo-Saxon, white men and women, will be in the minority. That's a scary thought when you understand when we live in a republic or representative democracy that says the majority rules. How can it be that the slave has risen to the level that he is now the majority in the master's house? The real fear is that you are going to do to them what they have done to us. But what they don't realize is that God made us special and unique. Um, every evidence suggests that Black people are the foundation for man and humankind. Never have you seen where we have gone to war in order to just eviscerate a whole race of people. But we've had that done to us. We was robbed, we were raped, we was robbed of our language, our culture, our God. And I say all of that to say, I just don't think, in fact, I know that's not who we are. So it's fear. Fear drove people to the polls and say, look, we will take a convicted criminal over a sister who have had the kind of career that we could only ask you to have. We would take him, give us this guy who speaks a language that's familiar to us. And that is, we intend to roll back people's human and civil rights, right? We will arrest those who we disagree with, and we will run those who are illegal aliens, quote unquote, out of the country. This is coming from a man who himself, if we had started the cutoff date as to who is illegal, he wouldn't have made the cutoff if the Native American had started that same policy, right? And so it is white fear that is driving people because they think that we will do to them what has happened to us. And that's just not who God created us to be. And that's not who we are. There's no point in history that you can see that we had that kind of spirit of retaliation in us. Never happened.
So then, how have historical faith-based movements like the Black Church or the Nation of Islam influenced African American identity and empowerment?
Well, look, they're all are beautiful in their movements, but the same church, that give us Grandmama and Big Mama, also gave us Bishop Henry McDill Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gaber Prosser. All of these were folks who said they read that book, and and Henry McNeil Turner, AME bishop, he said God is a black man, and he is on the side of the oppressed, or he ain't God at all. Gaber Prosser and Denmark Vesey read it and say, this scripture told me to go in here and set free the captives, and whatever means that I have to use. If it calls for the execution of the slave master, then that's fine. But my people are going to be free. It produced a Harriet Tubman who said, either you're going to be free or die right here trying to get freedom, right? And so she had a Bible in one part of her knapsack and a 38 in the other. And although she was free herself, she kept coming back to the South to free others. And so when I tell you that God's hand had to be in all of that, because not only does God just move you from one grace to greater grace, he also swells up in some of us that you are going to be the liberating force in your community. He said to a 26-year-old Dr. King, go down to Montgomery at the call of Ralph Abernathy, who was a couple of years older than he was, and go help get your people free down there. And that's what he did.
What is in you, Terry? Because I've sat across from you and we've had some good old conversations. Then what is in you to continue your fight? What is in you?
You know what? I do it because I owe so many people, right? I owe the ancestors, right? But I was very fortunate, George, to meet a brother who you knew well, and that's Arthur Langford. When I was 17, I met Arthur Langford, who was a city councilman, was elected from Morris Brown College when he was 23 years old. Because I met him, he was assistant pastor at West Hundred Street Baptist Church. And guess who was the pastor at the time? Ralph David Abernathy. The man who, if you listen to all of Dr. King's speeches, he says, this is the best friend that I have in the world. They were as close as two men could be. And so I get the benefit, because Arthur was always late, of going to the church to pick him up, drive him around, because 17, 18, that's what I was doing. And I get to sit down with Ralph Abernathy. I sit down with Hosea Williams, right, as a young man, right? And I heard the story. And, I sit down with Dr. Lowry. I became a mentee under the leadership of C.T. Vivian, a man who I absolutely lionized and idolized because I saw him on Eyes on the Prize. Never did I think that this kid from South Atlanta, Carver Homes, Price High School, Prior Road, would be sitting down with such iconic figures. And they poured in me. And so I feel a debt of obligation to turn around and pour into other young people. So most of the time when you see me, you'll see young people around me because I want to do for them what Arthur Langford, Ralph Abernathy, Hosea Williams, and others did for me, and that was just sit down and told me about the struggle, right? And it ain't always been easy, but it has been made easy when you understand that our freedom, and this is what Coretta Scott King said: our freedom is won by every generation, right? It is not guaranteed. So every generation has to find its struggle and fight for our freedom, or we portray it. And so that's what I believe. It is in me. I don't know anything else to do but to be a voice for the voiceless.
And one thing that you hold true to is your faith. You never relinquish that because you know that through faith and through Christ, all things are possible. So then, what are the unique challenges that Black Christians face in maintaining their faith in a society that still grapples with racial inequality and injustice?
Well, the battle is always for the mind. And this is a contemporary struggle that we're facing, right? The Bible reminds us that don't be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. We cannot make everything be fair seeming, right? I have no contradiction because I make it very clear that I'm not a preacher. I have no contradiction between the secular and the sacred, the secular and the sacred. Sometimes, George, I'll be honest with you, church people can be so heavily bound that they're no earthly good.
Mm.
We will condemn a young brother because he comes into church with his hat on, his pants sagging, or whatever the case might be, right? Because the church protocols said, take your hat off, pull your pants up. If I could just get him in the church, and this is what I say to young people, a lot of my work is in youth development. If after more than a week of hanging with me, if he don't look different, then I don't have a religion, right? Because he's going to follow me enough to know that that's not the kind of behavior you want to have. And our children learn, our young people learn by watching us. There's a little ditty, if you will, a little song, a little poem that says, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. And so our young people are very good at watching what we do, not so much what we say. So I think the challenge for the modern day church and our modern Christian faith is not to be so conformed to this world that we cannot correct the errors of our ways and not be so tied to old way of doing things, right? We are on a StreamYard service that wasn't even available to us 10 years ago, right? And I would say this for the church to its credit. During COVID, churches closed. I'm sure your church did not meet in person. But I would always say the church fed more people. They probably helped more people in need during that time because that was the hand of God even moving there. I would always say on my stage when I heard how many people were being fed by various churches, that the church may be closed, but the kingdom is still open. Church door may be closed, but the kingdom is still open. And you're doing kingdom work. When you gave all those food boxes, when you gave all of those rental assistance, when the church didn't just go out of business, when they got on services like StreamYard and many preachers never heard of YouTube, but they saw their ministry take off. I had to go to my own church because my late pastor, may he rest in peace, Reverend P.L. Redmond, I increased my giving because I just knew that the church was not getting the tithes. And he came to me and said, Bolden, you would be surprised. We are getting more tithes and offering while we're not in church than we got when we were in church. All right. And it just made sense because while I was not working, even at the station, my equipment is right behind me. Right. It meant less money that I had to spend on dinners and entertainment. I didn't go to no movies. Right. It meant that my income actually went up during that period. So The challenge for the modern church and modern Christians is to hold fast to your faith.
Mhm.
And as I always say, God simply did not bring us this far just to bring us this far.
Mhm.
I know that greater is available to us. We just have to be obedient to His word and keep moving and keep
So,
believing and trusting.
okay, pardon that. How do African Americans Black faith communities today reconcile the ongoing struggle for racial equality with the teachings of hope, love, and unity in the face of adversity?
Well, all the answers is in the book, right? I call the Bible basic instruction before leaving earth. We're reminded that the greatest of all of these things is love. Love is the only power in the universe that has the power to transform an enemy into a friend, right? And this is what Black people know. This is why family meant so much to us, and family means so much. Big Mama could make you feel like you could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people my mother, I just love her to life. And she never made me understand I had limitations.
Mm-hmm.
That Black woman really made me believe I was that Superman when I tied that tower on my neck and started running in the backyard, jumping off of trees and cars and everything else. It has been because we believe and we know that is all we got. We would have given up a long time ago. Our people would have given up if we just did not have the faith to believe that we could make it over, right? Many of us, myself included, have had health challenges. I had major back surgery and I've had other illnesses that could have took me out of here, right? But those were faith touchstone moments
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that I could not depend on my intellect. I couldn't depend on no degrees on my wall. I couldn't even call my mama, right? And I had to go to the one source that ain't never left. I said, God, if you do this, if you just let me rise up out of this bed, if you let me walk again, right? The back surgery I had it where people did not know. There was a period where I could not walk on my left leg. I don't tell people that because you ain't got to know everything. But that was a period I had so much pain and a nerve impinge that I couldn't stand on the leg, and the surgery was necessary. And there came a time where I just lost faith. Right? I just, I just like Lord, why? Because you know how we do as Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I said there's so many Negroes out here that really deserve this, right? I go to church. I do. Lord, why me? And then I had to get to the point of saying, why not me?
Mm-hmm.
Because without a test, you don't have a testimony. And so I can talk now about the miraculous healing power of a God who's able. And I can say it with authenticity and with truth. And I can hold up a picture that will show you all these screws and this plastic that's in my back. And I can now show you the tape where I get up and walk 5 miles a day when I couldn't even walk from my bed to the bathroom. And that ain't been ancient history. That's been 2 or 3 years ago. And I can show you the evidence of the friends who came, the listeners and callers from WAOK. While y'all did a great job at telling people he's coming back. I was off radio for a couple months at one point.
Right.
And so now I'm grateful. And I want to use every moment to make it meaningful. And so we reconcile by doing the work of Jesus the Christ. In him, there's no male, no female, no free, no bond. In him, all men are equal. And if you are willing to just treat God's people right, man, I can work with you. We can pray together. And that is what's going to help us. And that's what's going to help them, to be honest with you. At some point, they will wake up and understand that this is not of God. Slavery was not of God, right? And although in the book it says, slave, obey your master, we have to be honest to know that is not a proper interpretation of that text.
Mhm.
And don't bring that to me as one who was subjugated. Because if the roles were reversed, and I remind people that the slave masters, they went to church every Sunday.
Yep.
They went every Sunday
Mhm.
religiously.
Yeah, but I even think about I did have a short period of time with my great grandmother, and I had a longer period of time with my grandmother, and I have a 92-year-old mother right here who can tell those
Wow.
stories. And I just remember as a child growing up and even being educated, not just in high school, but in college, I never knew that all of them were struggling, because the things that I needed were there for me,
Yeah.
but who knew?
Yeah.
And I just remember my grandmother always saying, because I would be around her all the time, and I say it now myself, if it's the Lord's will.
Yeah.
And in my prayer, because I have testimonies as well. I almost died having my only son, you know, and
Really.
and I remember when Connie Flint, when
Yes.
WAOK was a gospel station,
Yes.
and I went into the hospital, and I was there for a little over a month. Connie Flint would come and pray with me.
Yes.
And it got around to the hospital that she was coming. And next thing you know, my room was full of nurses, you know,
Mm.
and
Oh yeah.
people,
Yeah.
you know, just listening to her words of
Yeah.
encouragement and letting me know that if you just trust in God, because I said the same thing when they were taking me in to bring Jamal into this world. And I said, could you give me a minute? I just want to ask God
Hmm.
to allow me to be a mother.
Yeah.
And no matter what condition, he's in, he was only 2 pounds and 2 ounces. And I
Yeah.
almost died on the table. That's why my faith is so strong. It's because
Yes.
when you got them testimonies,
Yeah. Oh, it makes it
come on.
absolute.
I lost the job and then was asked to come back and became a manager.
Yeah.
That wasn't me, that was God.
Yeah.
And you
And
cannot relinquish that faith. You got to hold on to it, no matter what the struggle are and is right now. You got to hold on to it.
and you're absolutely right. And that's the wonderful thing about our people is that we can draw strength. When you talk
Mm-hmm.
about having a 92-year-old mother, just the arc of the universe says, when you touch her hands, you will touch a woman whose hands touch that of probably an enslaved individual. If your mother is 92, that means her mother would have been 100 and maybe 20, right? 130 if she lived, and her mother would be 150. So it won't take you long to walk down to women who suffered,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the beautiful thing about our people, and this is why I just love our people, your mother shielded you from probably all the ugliness
Mm-hmm.
of what they had to deal with, right? Because she said, look, I don't want, just like you, your promise to Jamal, I don't want my son to have to struggle, right? And so I want to now create a lane through which he can travel, and anything I can do, y'all will do for him. And that's really what that's why I just love our people. At our best, that's what we do. We look out for each other, right? You and I grow up in that era where you can walk next door to get a cup of sugar if you needed it, a cup of flour. Our children, Jamal's children, probably would never know what that's like. But we used to go to Miss Phillips' house all the time
Mm-hmm.
because we were just that close. And so, I believe that it's our faith and our hope that informs our future. And now is not the time to lose hope. Every day I turn that radio on and get on it. Today, in particular, I had to remind people. I had a woman calling weeping today about what tomorrow is going to hold in the face of this presidency. I had to remind the baby, I don't know what tomorrow gonna hold, but I do know who holds tomorrow. And so while weeping will endure for a while, the joy will come
Mm-hmm.
again. All we got to do is stay the course and keep fighting now. Now, if you're not willing to fight, then you're going to get what you get. But when you're willing to resist, that's what Martin King did. That's what all of those who we talked about earlier, they did not just sit back and say, we're going to take this. We wouldn't have a Voters' Rights Act, a Civil Rights Act. We would have women who could vote if Ida B. Wells and some of the other women decide, oh no. Shirley Chisholm, first woman to run for president, and say, hey, look, why not a woman? Why not a woman? And why not me? Right? And we said, look, Shirley Chisholm walked so that Kamala Harris could run. Right? And so that will come a day when there'll be a sister who will head this country. I just know it. And that will come a day when, we will not have to deal with this kind of tyrannical rule. All we got to do is resist it.
Well, my final question to you, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for all these jewels and nuggets that you've been sharing tonight. In what ways can faith communities continue to evolve and support future generations in overcoming both spiritual and social challenges, particularly with the rise of issues like systematic racism and economic inequality?
Run to these young people, right? That is this narrative that young people have left the church, right? And I will say to you is the devil is a lie. If there was ever a time that young people needed to see the modern church, it is now. But they want to see a church that's bold. They want to see a church that's courageous. They want to see a church that embraces modern technology, right? If I can reach 10,000 people by hitting one button on this computer, and it ain't nothing but a message that encourages our young people, because I have a listserv, right? In aggregate, I had to get in social media when I came into radio. Right? I remember the folk laughing. I got Facebook page. I didn't even know what that was. But now that those Facebook pages have 30, 40,000 people, I can't talk. That's half of Madison Square Garden, or the full Madison Square Garden. That's a sold out event at State Farm Arena. Well, I ain't going to have a sold out event perhaps at State Farm Arena, but I can talk to them through Patio Chronicles. I can talk to them through, StreamYard, like what we're doing here tonight. It is my prayer that this message that we share here together will go out to some young person and some person whose faith is waning. And they'll understand that the only game that we have, and I am telling you, that's why I ran for the opportunity to just share with you tonight, that I want people to understand I am much more than just a radio personality. I'm much more than a former city council person, much more than all of the Africa trips and everything I do. That my first line of defense is that I'm a prayer warrior, right? And that I believe, in fact, I know that if we're going to get through it, we have to undergird ourselves spiritually first. You're just not going to be able to survive. So if I'm instructing the church what to do, go after these young people. Go develop a real youth ministry to meet them where they are. And as elders in the faith, we got to stop being so judgmental, right? Because if we're honest about it, we made some mistake too. The only thing is I was not on display like they often display theirs because we didn't have no Facebook. You and I grew up at a time we didn't have no Facebook, we didn't have no MySpace, we have none of these social media things that shine a spotlight on our shortcomings. And just realize if there was ever a time that a child needed a hug, needed a prayer, needed you to stop to acknowledge them, let them know we see you. We see you and we are hopeful and we're praying for you. I think that's what we got to do because we have no success without successors. We're going to get old. At 59, I have more days behind me than I have in front of me. We got to realize that. Who are we going to pass this on to? And why not prepare them now for leadership inside the church, outside the church, in the community? And the best way to do that is bring them to the institution that we still control, and that is the Black church.
Derek Bozeman, thank you so much.
Joyce, it has been an absolute pleasure for me, and thank you for having me.
It is it. I knew this night was going to be this. I just hope that the viewers who are listening and watching this, take all of this in, and to know we still have work to do. But if we keep the faith and stay on our journey, then we will see success. We would see change, because
Yes,
that is what it's all about. We can never stay in the same place. Change is inevitable, and you just
yes,
have to be prepared for it. And as my grandmother used to say, just read your Bible and pray every day, and you'll be ready for anything, because at that point, you are growing. Derek, would you like to share, how people can follow you and just keep up with what Derek Bozeman is
but
doing?
the best way, I'm old school. Follow me on Facebook. This is the best place. You can follow me by my name, Derek, Derrick, Bozeman, Boazman. I'm about to launch DerrickBozeman.com. So everything Derek Bozeman, from the stuff I do in radio, the community service, that'll be coming up in a few weeks. We're perfecting the website. And so, but the quickest way to know what I'm doing every day is probably on my Facebook page. I do have Instagram. Same thing, my name. If you just put my name in a Google search, you'll find me. And you always can find me from 4 to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, on WALK. And so download the Odyssey app, or just, you can just go to WALK.com and listen to the Listen Now button. We're always just trying to share. And again, George, thank you so much for the opportunity to just have this conversation. And I appreciate it. And it's refreshing, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you so much, and that's why I love being a member of the Leadership Church, for their innovation, and knowing that it takes these kinds of conversations to help gather our people, to grow closer to God,
Yeah.
and help encourage them to know what their responsibilities are, to continue to lead our people.
Yeah.
So I thank you. I thank the Leadership Church every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. This is the kind of conversation that you will receive. And throughout the month of February, we will be talking about our faith, our challenges, and Black history. I'm Joyce Littell, and on behalf of our pastors, Pastor Tony Cash and Pastor Alicia Cash, we thank you for joining us, and make sure you tune in Wednesdays at 7 on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook channel. Have a wonderful and pleasant evening, and happy Black History Month to you.